Be prepared, as we are about to ruffle some feathers, I think, with a discussion I'm really interested to talk about. And we are joined by sports personality, soccer personality, Terminus Lane, and Jason Rubin, as we know in the end, our soccer enthusiast.
Yes.
I
represent the fans, okay? In America.
Yeah. All right, so...
Enthusiast. We'll go with that.
A good discussion, which actually was put across to us, and I'm really interested because we have former US women's U23 nationalist in to talk about this, is because the women's national team seems to create world-class women's soccer players in terms of that sport and their context, whereas the men's soccer team, despite, in my opinion, a good World Cup, do not produce the same world-class talent that are so renowned worldwide as the women's team do. So I want to throw it to you straight away, Tamaris. Why do you think this is the case in terms of how does the women's national team and women's soccer produce such great world-class players?
Well, it dates back to the 1970s, 1972, Title IX, where there was a law implemented where there had to be equal rights in women's sports, and therefore a lot of the funding, especially in the NCAA, the collegiate level, went towards women's sports. I remember it took a while to progress, but while I was at school at Arizona State playing, we actually eliminated our wrestling team to open up scholarships for women's players, and they even started a women's water polo team while we were there, just so that they could be more female athletes. So because of that investment in the 1970s, we were worlds away from other countries that had really invested in women's athletics. Now that being said, we had our star players and our first Women's World Cup in 1991, we won that one, and then really invested into women's soccer. And I also believe that it was just one of those sports that you and I, all three of us know, that all you need is a ball. You can be anywhere, you can play. You can play on the streets, you can play in the house, you can play on a pitch. It doesn't even need to be a nice pitch, and you can still play. So for me growing up, I got to just get out there with the boys, with the ball. And I have an older brother, and it was just one of those sports that you either fit in or you stood out or you had to fight harder. And I think a lot of the women here in this country just got in. Now, soccer in this country, and the reason why men have been light years behind the rest of the world, is you really have to look at the length of the programs, the professional leagues, the European countries, England, 122-year-old, I think that's what it is, 122 years old for the Premier League, and Italy not so far behind that, as opposed to 60, 70 years in Major League Soccer. So there's just a bigger gap between U.S. soccer and America's exceptionalism with the sport, even going back to the name. I said it earlier. I'm leading the charge. Let's reclaim the name football, because that's what it is. And I think that's why there's such a big difference, especially as to why women's soccer dominates. And we're heading into a World Cup year, and it should be a good one.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. And I'm with you on the charge, by the way. I already renamed it. We know I called it hand egg, Jason. We know people out there are willing to call it that.
Just being around you mostly has unfortunately led to the, I'm just going to call it football, because it's confusing when you're trying to at least differentiate between the two sports here. We've been through the conversation 1.5 million times. There's nothing wrong with calling them both football. That is what they're called. We'll leave it at that.
Yes, that could be the case, but people, are in America are going to be stubborn and not want to call it that.
One note on the women's national team versus the men's national team. So some people might call me crazy. Maybe the women are just better than the men. There's so many men who are afraid to say that. How could you say it? We have, first of all, in this country, thank God, we have equal rights for men and women. Little things like Title IX come around to obviously reinforce those. We've had conversations, and I believe it was maybe Ukraine, where they don't let women into the stadium, let alone that. So we're miles ahead of where, I don't want to say we're miles ahead of those countries. It's just, no, it's a normal thing to do. Get on board with us.
Women are better listeners, so the development maybe have to do with that.
I've coached women, and I agree with that.
It's true.
Yeah, so here comes, I'm going to drop this, of course, as I have my numerous opinions on this matter in this country. It's a cultural thing, first and foremost. Women here play soccer. Women in the UK do not grow up playing soccer. You grow up, or play football, if you grow up in the UK, and you're a girl and you play soccer, you're immediately thinking that people are immediately thinking that you're not involved in women's things and girly things. I'm telling you,
stereotypes,
and you're immediately your sexuality is questioned, and it's not right, and that's not the way it should be. But in the US, a big factor, which is surprising, I'm still not figured it out for men, but for women, you produce such great talent because you incorporate it into your educational system for most sports. So that's why you generate the best NBA players, you generate the best NFL athletes, you generate women's soccer players. But I still can't understand why the men. You don't produce single world-class players. Like, don't get me wrong, this World Cup, I stand by the United States as having a good joined effort in the World Cup. You came through with a group that was very hard, had the best player in the world, arguably the best player in the world to play against, and the best team in the world to play against, in Germany and Ronaldo, of course, and Portugal. You came through that. You came together. Tim Howard was one player you could argue could be a world-class talent, but in amongst those, your Dempseys and your Bradleys, none of them hold a light up to the world-class players that are created in the world. So I still don't understand why none of these players are generated from this country.
Well, there's too much competition. You mentioned all the other sports. And I also think that you said something about education and how we're able to implement our sports within our education system and how the disciplines kind of complement each other. But in soccer in particular, what's happening across the world is that other sports or other countries are investing in their young footballers, like Messi at the age of 12, where every day it's education and soccer. Education and soccer. Education and soccer. Here, our boys are playing football, baseball, basketball, until they get to college, and they're like, okay, what are you going to actually commit and play? And a lot of universities don't have soccer programs because of Title IX and because of the competition with football. And pop culture would tell young boys, young aspiring athletes, to go play football, to go play basketball, to go play baseball. And if you play soccer, good luck at making a career out of it because you're not going to make very much money.
The one interesting point that you made there was, multiple interesting points, but specifically Lionel Messi, who was invested in when he was 12. We do the same thing in America, and we do it for the NBA. High school kids, All-American, McDonald's All-American guys. I mean, LeBron James, the best athlete we've seen in at least our generations, especially in the NBA, is a world-class talent. If that same methodology was applied to either a sport like soccer, football, whatever we want to call it, and less from the NFL, which is obviously causing brain damage in people, there's going to be a slow cultural change, I believe, but I don't think it's one of these 1 to 2 year fixes. And people don't want to be patient. I think it's past the 2022 World Cup before you even see the youth soccer football movement start to happen, because a lot of it comes down to the same reasons why hockey never grew in this country as much as it could have. They didn't build the rinks. But with soccer, like the NBA, you only need a ball. You don't even need a goal to get better at the sport. It's also a very affordable sport to play.
We also in America have the tendency to organize the fun out of football. And I mean soccer by that. Organize the fun. And the thing with the reason why Brazil produces so many incredible Ronaldinhos and Ronaldos, the original Ronaldo, is because they have the ability to find their creativity within the sport, and they build this relationship with this ball instead of you stand here, pass it here, and that's not the way it works in soccer and football. It's a much more creative sport.
So here's what the final thing I think to touch on this, and back to the argument why women in this country are producing world-class players in soccer. In the women's soccer world, there's not as much emphasis on the physical aspect of the game, because in our culture we immediately just think that women are not as physically capable as men, which is obviously a wrong assumption, but we are in this world. So a lot of emphasis is put on the technical ability in women's soccer, which is the emphasis you have to put on.
Which kind of leads to, I think they're called wins.
You're supposed, and do you know why? Because you think Lionel Messi was told when he was younger, which I guarantee if he was in America, boy, you need to get in that weight room, you need to get in there and start working out, because. And don't get me wrong, this is an aspect of the game that is coming to life now, because Cristiano Ronaldo is in prime physical shape, but you have to work on the technical side first, and that is down to coaching. And in a women's game, I believe more coaches are focusing on the technical aspect from a young age, because I think it'd be weird if a coach was telling a girl at 13, 14 years of age to go and start squatting.
I will say this. No, you're right.
Right? That's what I
I
think.
mean, it is kind of a fad these days.
Yeah.
However, I will say this: United States have always been known for their fitness.
Yes.
And that's endurance fitness, strength. That's part of what makes them such a powerhouse is that they can outrun everybody. But that's just supplemental to the technical aspect that you're.
And the way I look at it is, you look at Michael Bradley, who ran the most out of I think anyone in the World Cup. You look at Andrea Pirlo, who moves probably at the same distance as this
Moving
table.
intelligently.
Yeah, he just moves and he just pings passes. So in a game, I understand in NFL and NBA and things like that, it's quantified based on statistics. How fast can you
Just
run?
because he has a
How much can you
magnificent
jump?
beard doesn't mean it looks like he's running in
It's true,
slow
yeah,
motion.
There's many players who have a magnificent
look
beard.
at-
How will just come up. Look at the passion. But as I said, the sports in America are quantified down the stats. I could probably tell you LeBron James' last 10 jumps based on centimeters, because everyone likes to talk about that stuff based on how much he can
It's
jump, how fast he can run.
Inches in America.
Centimeters, same thing.
Just
But-
because we're calling it football doesn't mean you get to use the metric system.
because when you watch a game on soccer, what's the first stat that comes up? Possession, shots on goal. Not how much that will come into it, how much they ran and the speed. It's down to the possession, technical
I'm
ability.
always amazed about that, though.
Right.
That's like the one stat when it came to watching the World Cup that I was most blown away by was like, oh, they've only ran like
10
9 miles
miles.
today.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's right around the corner, and I'm sorry to interrupt and
No,
kind of hijack your show here, but I wanted to just say we're talking about equality and how women in the United States have dominated. We're going into the World Cup year. Why are we playing on turf? Why does FIFA think it's okay to play this game on turf?
It's something that has happened in this country that I was shocked when I first came here, because it takes it's not as fun. Because on sport, on grass and mud, it gets so much fun. The part of the game was in Scotland, is you see how muddy you could get if there was part, like you'd go in for slide tackles, go in.
Rainy
and get
regions,
rainy
too.
regions,
Yeah.
get in there. So turf for me is just it's a maintenance thing. They're thinking, oh, how much can
Yeah.
we do?
Easier to maintain.
Because areas, especially in LA, it's so much more because there's not as much
There's
rain
also-
here.
I know
Not as
why.
much, there's none. There's
I
zero
know
rain.
why. I know why they use turf. I get it. I've coached. I play here, especially here in California. They're all sissies. Everybody wants to.
Shots fired.
Yeah, I like
Wait,
it.
what's the same word for sissy except for dudes? Anyway, I don't. Why does FIFA think it's okay for the women's game when they would never in a million years consider it for the men's? Because I'll tell you what, you can count on some ACL injuries right off the bat.
Yeah, well, and women injuries, ACL is one of the most common injuries, right, for women. And with no give on turf, you're going to get a lot more of those injuries. And I wouldn't be surprised. It's people we're talking about. Sepp Blatter's probably got some deal with a turf company.
I'm
It's
sure
like,
he does.
It's probably like, you know what, put everything in the US and in Canada and stuff like that, turf for the World Cup, and we'll give you some money. Doctors will probably be involved because we'll have to work on more injuries. So, I mean, it's a good point you bring up. But we will be watching the Women's World Cup, and we will be
Indeed.
covering it. Yeah,
Indeed.
we're looking forward to that. So thank you guys for joining us here in this discussion. Continue the discussion in the comments below. What do you think? Why do women in the US are producing more world-class talent in their sport compared to the men? Let us know in the comments, and let us know what you think. Tim Howard or Andrea Pirlo, who's got the best beard?